Alright, captains, we're back on the bridge, and today what I wanted to do was go over a question that was posted on Twitter. So, on screen. So this came from Star Trek on Paramount. Question is, when faced with a galactic event, no less than a fleet will do, which ship would you want to captain? So I thought it would be fun to kind of have a discussion on this. But we're going to keep it within the context of what we saw in Star Trek Picard Season 2. So these are just some of the images that was posted. So we're going to go over it. So what we're going to do, go over the threat, the ships, drop my two ECs, and then give my conclusion. So here we go. So again, which ship? Now, what's the threat? Well, it's the Borg ship, and we've all seen this before. I have actually done a video of this, actually two videos regarding this. One that was going over the ships that we saw, of course, in Star Trek Picard Season 2, but also it relating to Star Trek Online on a sort of what type of TFO, task force operation, that I would like to see. And, well, this was, now we all know that that wasn't what had happened, but again, we're going to keep it to that question because I think I love ships, captains. You know, one of my first things that I love about Star Trek is the ships. So that's the threat. The planet killer-ish Borgified planet killer. Now, this was again from Dave Blass, so huge shout out to Dave Blass for all these images that he's provided. So this is the threat. Now, there was also a size comparison chart, which is right here, of how big this ship actually was in comparison to the fleet. And of course, again, we went over that even in our review there. It was massive. There was no and ifs or but. This ship was massive. And all the ships listed there on that size comparison chart is what our choices are going to be. The only ship that wasn't there, though, on this chart was the La Serena. But it's there. We're gonna go over it. I'm gonna again give my drop my two ECs. All my thought is. So here again is the Starfleet ships that were there. You had a bunch of sovereign classes, if you see there. You had the Ross class, again, the Ross class skin. This was from Star Trek Online. You had the Sutherland, again, from Star Trek Online. The Inquiry, or the USS Copy Paste. Sorry, I had to. The Excelsior 2.0, captains, you know that we are excited for this ship. Did I say I want? I want. As well as the actual Stargazer itself. I want that ship. This ship is pretty. Now, of course, there's only one Stargazer. It looks like you had two Excelsiors. I didn't see that, but sure, it's there. You had the one Gagarin, which is again from Star Trek Online. Akira class, a Luna, and a Reliant class, which again from Star Trek Online. So these are the choices that we're going to have to go over. I actually had a hard time answering this because my first love in Star Trek is the Galaxy class. I've mentioned that in previous videos before. Now, the Galaxy class, essentially in Star Trek Online, is the Ross class, and the Ross class is just more of an exclusive skin, which is locked behind a 10th anniversary bundle for Star Trek Online. As much as I love the Galaxy class, I had to ex-nay the Ross. But personally, how I lean is more to tactical heavy ships. But I also love cruisers. Now, in Star Trek Online, the more tactical heavy focus ships are kind of like your escorts, but also can be cruisers, really anything, as long as you build it correctly. But again, we're talking about in this context of what we see on screen. Of course, we're going to go off of that, and I'm still having a hard time. But we have a closer look at these ships. Again, the La Serena wasn't here, but it is one of the choices. Now, if we're going up against the Borg ship, the Planet Killer Borg ship, I'm just going to call it the Planet Killer Borg ship. It's not that, but we're going to say, because it was a what if scenario posed in that slide there. Now, when I first saw the La Serena, I still, it didn't feel Star Trek to me. It really didn't. And it just looked like a fighter ship on a different show. I get it. It's a cargo ship. They want to try something new. Sure, it's there. I would have to say, in Star Trek Online, this is an escort, but I would have to say I wouldn't pick this one. As agile as this would be, and we've seen it be very agile under Captain Rios, and what we've seen so far of it in season 1, I would not. This thing could get one-shotted. That's it. Once a Borg tractor beam gets a hold of it, you can say sayonara. It's gone. Now, it's been 2 seasons in, and I still can't quite wrap my head around the La Serena, which is fine, captains. If you love the La Serena, go ahead. But for me, for that question that was posed, I'm going to say no to that. Our next set of ships here, now again, you had the Akira, the Excel 2.0, and then the Sutherland. I love the Nebula, and for the same reasons that I mentioned earlier for the Galaxy / Ross, this is just the Nebula skin for the Sutherland class, the Hudgens there at the bottom. I would say if that was a choice, I would not take that. Then that leaves on this at least slide here the Akira and the Excel 2.0. I would lean towards the Akira. The Akira is one of my favorite Star Trek ships. When I first saw that ship in Star Trek First Contact in that battle, instantly fell in love with it. And it's a torp boat essentially, so for Star Trek Online, I love it. But if we're talking again context of canon, what we're going to be seeing, on screen, between the two, the Excelsior and the Akira, I would have to lean towards the Akira. So that's moving up in the list of my picks. The Excelsior 2.0, though, is a beautiful ship. I've said it before in the video previously. I was an Excel fan. It grew on me, but this design, the Excel 2.0, it just yes. It just yes, okay? It just yes. So now the Akira does show twice here, so we're gonna kind of leave that here. Now we have here the USS Christopher, the Gagarin class, and the Reliant, which the Gagarin and the Reliant are from Star Trek Online. I would again not pick those two. Not to say that, let's say the Gagarin is the latest starship and could outclass the Akira. Between these three here, since I have the Akira sort of moving up my list of which ship I would take command of, which ship I would use against the fight against that Borg ship, I'd still be sticking with the Akira at this point. Gagarin, great ship. I love the design of it. I love what they've done with it. It looks sleek. It looks right. It feels like Trek. The Reliant, of course, is just an update of the Miranda. And, Gagarin was an update of the Shepherd too. So, but I'd still lean towards the Akira. Here we go. Now, the next 3 ships here that we have, again, we've talked about the Archer or the Ross class / Galaxy class. I love the Galaxy, and it's a cruiser. I would say no to this particular one in this instance, because I am thinking more of having some maneuverability, firepower, but also that can pack a punch, like quite a punch, and that's why the Akira is there. Now, we know that the Magellan, the Inquiry class, was the toughest, fastest ship that Starfleet has ever made at that point of Picard Season 1 finale. As much as I do actually appreciate this ship, what turns it off for me is the grill. It's the grill deflector. I can't. But this angle I do love, and I appreciate that angle. Now, talking about the Europa or the Lunar Class, that I almost compare to the Akira because of the weapons pod. That's seriously just because of the weapons pod. Underslung nacelles, saucer design, and it both almost have that same sort of design, the catamaran design there at the side of the bridge. So they recently redid the skin on that on Star Trek Online, and it looks gorgeous. It really does. I almost put it in the same class of the Akira in terms of almost functionality, firepower. I would think the Akira would edge it a little bit more because of how many torpedo tubes that bad boy has. We've seen the Lunar Class in lower decks, and it showed, especially when it saved the Cerritos, when Riker was commanding it, of course, which Riker also commanded a Inquiry class at the end of season 1 Picard there, how much firepower this Lunar class does have. It had phasers, it had photons, it had quantums. I would think that when we're going all over these ships, they all have the same armaments. I'm not sure if any of the escorts would have cannons, because it even showed that the La Serena was firing beams, if I'm not mistaken. We haven't seen the Inquiry fire anything, so we're just assuming we're going to say it has beams, quantum torpedoes, photon. We're all going to assume the same thing. But we're going to use a little bit of Triz's head cannon to kind of make up his mind on which ship. So again, this set of pictures here, you have one of the toughest ships recently made in Starfleet, which is the Inquiry, and then the Lunar Class, which recently got canonized, and then of course the Akira. So those three are kind of up there. At this point in our video discussion, I'm not sure yet, but there's still some more left. They did not include these next two in the Twitter post, but these were also from the Picard, again, from Dave Blass's Twitter, so I just wanted to include them here. Now, of course, the Venture Sovereign class. Now, when I first saw the Sovereign class, just like almost everyone, just jaw-dropping, just went, because it is a great design. It felt just so Starfleet. It felt so right. It felt like really like the Federation was really, really pushing into a more tactical type cruiser. And we saw it in action. Captains, we know this thing can kick some aft. Like, it can kick some serious aft. From its phaser firing, from the quantum torpedoes, from the photon torpedoes, this ship had it all. It could take a beating. It took a beating, especially against Nemesis. One of my favorite Star Trek battles to watch over and over again was the fight in Nemesis between the Enterprise E and the Scimitar. So this again is I have to push this up there. I have to push this up there. So that's now 4 ships that I have to sort of go through. Again, we all know the capability of the Sovereign. The only time we really seen it in action was Nemesis, but that really shows to me, again, the capability of this, but would also probably be the capability of the Inquiry, but just in a smaller little package. Now, if we go back to that slide that shows the sizes of the ships. So we have, there's the Sovereign is the longest. The Inquiry was shorter, but it had more of kind of like a wide sort of base to it. It feels a little bit more armored, a little more thick-skinned, if you will. Again, we'll go back to this in a bit, but the Sovereign, of course, is just look at that. That's eye candy, captains. That's literally eye candy. From almost every angle, this ship just looks really good. And I would be doing it as a service for not putting it on top of the list there. So that's top. Now, of course, the last ship that we'll sort of go over is the Stargazer. Now, this is a completely new ship for Picard, and if I'm not mistaken, they said something about the ship being new technologies, some Borg-infused technologies and everything like that. Now, the first time I saw this, insta fell in love. I know, captains, I say that a lot, but Triz has a big heart, okay? I love a lot of things, so just bear with me. Having said that, the only sort of visual issues I had with this was just the nacelles were too long. I think they could have just done it to be a little shorter, but regardless, it's still a great looking ship. It really is. And again, if we're thinking about at this point, since we did not see it fire weapons or anything other than just to have a shield, which the board penetrated with its transporter, thinking that the capability armaments would be the same as what we've seen the Federation have up to this point. So again, all these ships are capable have phasers, photon torpedoes, quantums is kind of the basis that I'm looking at. So I want to sort of then put this into what I would, a list of that, which I'd pick for to take command if I had to. If we were there on that day saying, Captain Triz, you had a choice of your ship, which ship do you want to command? Stargazer would be put there on the top of the list. Put on the list because we have the Stargazer. At this point, we have the Stargazer, the Sovereign, the Inquiry, the Luna, and the Akira. So, from those 5 ships, which indeed would Triz take command of? It's such a fun discussion to have, but it's when you're facing a ship like this, and then when you put it into, again, a perspective of this, of how big this is, you look at that and you have the Sovereign, again, the longest ship there is not going to be the most maneuverable, but what we saw on screen, it's maneuverable, so we can sort of maybe surmise from that the Inquiry would be a little bit more maneuverable, and then kind of going down that list. Where the Stargazer would be in maneuverability, I mean, we didn't see it in action much. I would think probably a little or on par, a little better or on par than the Inquiry. Then you take the Akira, which of course at this point it is a little older, and then of course the Luna there. So I'm going to eliminate right now the Luna. As much as I love it, I'm going to eliminate the Luna. Okay? Because again, we're talking about what I would take. As much as I love it in this situation, I'm going to take that out. So that leaves me with the Akira, Stargazer, Inquiry, and Sovereign. I hate to base it on looks. I really do. I have the Inquiry in Star Trek Online, and it's a great ship. It really is. But that deflector, but looking at it again, it looks like it can take quite the beating. And Starfleet really heavily invested in the Inquiry. But again, if we're going to say and talk about this fight, which one I would want to be in, at this point, I'm going to take the Inquiry out. Personal, again, this is just me. So that leaves now the Akira, the Stargazer, and the Sovereign. So those 3 ships. It's getting a little harder because I have a soft spot for the Akira and Sovereign. Of course, the Sovereign because it was the same model as the Enterprise E. It's a flagship. We've seen it in various iterations in games. Of course, Star Trek Online, Star Trek Legacy, Star Trek Bridge Commander, Starfleet Command, Star Trek Starfleet Command. And I've had the pleasure of flying the ship across many games, and I love it to death. I love the Sovereign. So it kind of pains me to take it off the list, but I'm going to do so. Again, just for this, we're talking about this. So now that leaves the Akira and the Stargazer. We're talking about fighting this board ship in this moment. And I want to be on a ship that I know I can trust. And besides, we have, again, going to the Stargazer, we haven't seen what it's capable of. The Akira, the information that we know about it is literally a torpedo boat. I mean, the Akira has torpedo tubes on the sides of its saucer. Now, the Stargazer, we have seen nothing of it, but it is maybe, the latest technology in starships, but where is it actually ranked between in terms of firepower? We don't know. as of yet. But just to answer that question, captains, as much as I do love that new model of the Stargazer, I'm going to go with the Akira. Captain Triz will take an Akira class starship fighting the Borg. At least this Borg ship. I have the maneuverability. I'd have armament. I'd say good armor on it, blade of armor and whatever armor technologies that the Federation had, of course, fighting the Borg. And of course, packing the punch of the phasers, the photons. And I'd like to think at this point, too, they would retrofit these Akiras to have modified to be able to fire quantum torpedoes. So, again, I love all the ships that I had mentioned. Going again off of this against the Borg, I would take the Akira. It just feels like I feel I have more chance to inflict a good amount of damage and scuttle away in that ship if I needed to, compared to the Sovereign, compared to the Inquiry, the Stargazer, and the Luna. Now, again, the Inquiry it looks like it could take more of a beating because of its top look there. The side profile looks kind of really meaty and beefy. But for me, I think Captain Triz would definitely take the Thunderchild, the Akira class right there, if I had a choice. Because again, on the sides of the saucer, it has photon torpedo tubes. In front of the hangar bay, it has photon torpedo tubes. It has the weapons pod that has torpedo tubes on the fore and aft, and even angled in the aft there. This thing could literally shoot a stream of photon torpedoes to the Borg, and would be able to help the fleet in a lot of ways. Not taken away from any of the ships that I picked or any of the ships that we saw. Going back to the original question posted here, when faced with a galactic event, no less than a fleet will do, which ship would you want to captain? I'd have to go with the Akira class. So that's my two EC's captains. What do you think? What ship would you choose within this what we went over here? Comment below. Let us know. Let's have a discussion. Like I said, use your head canon. There's no wrong answer. But if you were called into the admiral's office and ask, Captain, what ship? I'm going to need you to take over a ship. I need you to be here. We're going to fight the Borg. Pick your ship. Personally, Captain Triz would pick the Akira class. Again, it hits all the notes for me from what I've seen of it on screen. It looks sleek, it looks armored, has photon torpedo tubes coming out the aft. It even has hangar bay capability. And it just looks so good. Did I say it looks so good? It looks good. So, captains, I thought this would be a fun video to do. I love talking Star Trek. I love talking ships. So it seemed very fitting. Look out for more. We may have to do another video, or maybe even this may be a start of a series that we do here. And I just, again, have just been enjoying all the Trek that we have right now. And again, captains, I started covering Star Trek here on the YouTube bridge for Star Trek Online, but it's given me an opportunity to kind of branch out into Star Trek in general, because I do love it and I love having these discussions. Captains, I always invite you to the Twitch bridge, to the YouTube bridge when we're live, so that we can have these discussions. Like last night, we had one of the photo editors from Strange New Worlds actually come on stream, and it's not the first time. Shout out to you, Silver Metal Tavern. Great captain who loves Star Trek. I can feel it from the conversations that we've had. And we have all these conversations all the time, and it's mostly Star Trek Online, but it does go into Star Trek in general, because I'd like to think I found like-minded captains, and when we're together on the bridge, we just talk Trek, we just have fun, we just literally just Trek out, geek out, nerd out. And I think I stole that line from Grumpy. Grumpy, Grumpy, old Nord, shout out to you, sir. But in these instances, this is where also I get to share my love and passion for Star Trek. So, captains, I appreciate it. So, again, comment below, what ship would you take in this battle? Like the video, subscribe here to the YouTube bridge if you haven't yet, and look out for more videos that we will do on Star Trek Online, and of course, anything Star Trek that we have too easy to drop on. So, captains, with that said, we'll leave it on this note. LLaP until the next vid, Caps.